Classroom management is often a misused term by educators and parents. When we speak of classroom management, many think of student control or being in control of the power in the room. Nothing could be more confusing in a beginning teacher's career. This presentation introduces important elements towards managing student behavior. As a new teacher, it's important to solidify the foundation of managing a classroom through building respectful relationships, consistency in student interaction, and smooth classroom and laboratory transitions. Let's talk briefly about several areas of classroom management that we can establish as new educators. In the interest of managing your classroom, it's important to understand how self-control, self-respect, and responsibility contributes to positive student behavior. Setting classroom parameters provides a uniform guideline to support and encourage students to call upon these internal attributes. These internal qualities will help contribute to students' academic and social success. More importantly, enables the teacher to gain a more cooperative academic environment. Let's talk more about self-control. Teachers must be ready and willing to teach contributing attributes to help students gain self-control. Self-control is understanding cause and effect. Your actions impact your outcomes. If you want to get a good grade on a test, you study. If you want to stay out of trouble, you behave well. It is cause and effect. If you have developed self-control, when you improve or don't, you take responsibility. Your actions control the cause, so you're responsible for the effect. Many of our young, even by adolescents, have not been taught self-control. These are kids who live in a psychological world of chance rather than cause and effect. Things just happen over which they perceive no control, so they are not responsible for the outcomes. When they want to do better on a test, they wish for a lucky day. When they want to stay out of trouble, they hope that you are in a good mood. These are young people who do not learn from successes or mistakes and consequences for their actions and do not change behavior. They do not examine circumstances in a cause and effect framework. They simply have good days and bad days. As an educator, it's critical to help this type of student for their own good and the overall good of your classroom management. The following video illustrates these very important points about the power of self-control.
Self-control, teaching students about their greatest inner strength. What's the key to health, wealth, and success? You might think it's your looks, your background, or your intelligence. Think again. Self-control is our greatest human strength and the easiest to improve. Just think of your heroes: Mother Teresa, Albert Einstein, Abraham Lincoln, and Nelson Mandela. They had different backgrounds and different skills, but they share one thing in common: self-control. They overcame obstacles, they persevered in the face of failure and frustration, and they worked harder than others to achieve their goals. You might think you're worlds apart from these self-control icons, but I'm here to show you that you have that same ingredient that will help you achieve your goals. What is self-control? It has 3 parts. Monitoring, how much we keep track of what we're doing, how often you weigh yourself, check your bank balance, or keep track of your grades. Standards, these tell you what's appropriate. Laws tell us how fast we're supposed to drive. They tell us why we should wear a suit instead of flip-flops to a job interview, and they tell us how to live up to our moral ideals. And strength, this is the energy to use self-control. Self-control is fragile. If you use it, you have less energy left over later. Why should we study self-control? 3 reasons. Self-control improves individual well-being. People with better self-control have better mental health, better physical health, they get better grades, and they're less likely to struggle with alcohol and drug abuse. To illustrate, one study wanted to see which was more important in predicting success in school: self-control or intelligence. They measured self-control and intelligence at the beginning of the year and then waited patiently to see how well the students did in their classes at the end of the year. The result? Self-control was twice as important as intelligence in predicting academic success. Self-control also improves relationships. It might even help you deal with frustration. But no one had conducted an experiment to see whether self-control helps people overcome their aggressive urges. To test this, we had college students come to a laboratory for what they thought was a taste testing study. Unbeknownst to the students, they had been randomly assigned to two different groups. The first group was given a plate that had a tasty donut on it. The experimenter said, "We want to get your opinion on how the donut tastes." Next, the experimenter waited as the student was close to taking the first bite of the donut. Once the student's mouth was open, the experimenter interrupted and said, "Wait, I messed up, please don't eat the donut." The experimenter then left the room for 6 minutes. The second group was told the same thing, but this time they couldn't eat a radish instead of a donut. Imagine what those 6 grueling minutes were like. Forcing yourself to avoid eating a tempting donut probably took a lot of energy, much more than forcing yourself to avoid eating a radish. Next, we ignited an aggressive urge by having all participants get some insulting feedback. Did the mentally fatigued students behave most aggressively? They did. They made a stranger suffer by making them eat lots of unpleasant, spicy food. What's this energy resource that becomes depleted? One group of researchers stumbled on the solution in what they initially thought was a failed experiment. They gave some students an opportunity to indulge themselves, thinking this would undo the depletion effect. It did, but there was another surprise. Giving students a gloppy, bad-tasting beverage with lots of calories did the same thing. A large body of work now points to the importance of energy as part of the resource that's involved in willpower. Giving depleted people a boost of glucose reduces their aggression, their irrational decision-making, and their financial impulsiveness. It tells your brain that energy is coming on board, and you have to allocate your energy effectively. But wait a minute. If willpower relies on a common biological process, is it necessary to have sophisticated mental machinery in order to show these depletion effects? Would animals show them? And would a boost of glucose restore them to their normal selves as it does with humans? My colleagues and I tested this possibility using dogs, 2 of which were my own golden retrievers. We depleted dogs by having them sit and stay for 10 minutes. Another group just sat in a kennel. Afterwards, we gave the dogs a toy that had food in it, but we rigged it so they could never get any of the food out. We timed how long they tried. Don't worry, we gave them lots of treats at the end of the study. The depleted dogs persisted about half as long as the non-depleted dogs. In a second study, we undid this effect by squirting glucose in some of the dogs' mouths. So the same thing that undid self-control failure in humans worked with dogs. Let's wrap up by talking about 4 things you can do to improve your self-control. As we've seen, improving your self-control has big payoffs, including better health, relationships, and success in school. You can start to see results quickly. First, become a mental energy accountant. This relates to our discussion of monitoring. You keep track of your daily activities. Do you also keep track of when you'll spend your limited mental energy? For the next 2 weeks, plan your activities not only according to when they'll happen, but also how much energy you'll need to do them. Second, build your self-control strength. Self-control relies on an all-purpose energy resource, so it doesn't matter how you practice it. You get stronger the more you practice. For the next 2 weeks, try using your non-dominant hand to complete everyday tasks like cooking and brushing your teeth. The idea is that you have to override your natural impulse to use your dominant hand, which is what self-control is all about. It seems crazy, but studies have shown that this self-control strengthening exercise pays off. Third, play offense against your environment. Take control over your surroundings. When you can't keep your eyes off your cell phone, try turning it over. You'll be surprised at how easily you'll pay attention when you don't have to worry about looking at your phone. And fourth, take the mind out of the middle. Self-control hurts because we battle against ourselves. Should I exercise now or later? Should I eat 1 or 2 slices of cake? If you want to study more, set up a contract with yourself. Whenever I get home from class, I'll do 30 minutes of studying. Sounds almost too easy, doesn't it? Today we covered one of humanity's greatest strengths, self-control. Each day we marvel at people who appear faultless when it comes to their willpower, and we ask ourselves, why don't I have more self-control? We can't make much progress at achieving our goals if we don't know about the basics of self-control, what it is, why it's important, and how it works. By resolving this mystery underlying self-control, we can gain a new appreciation for people we regard as our heroes, and understand that we have what it takes to achieve our goals and lead a happy, healthy, and successful life.
The lack of a person's self-respect can be a strong contributing factor to classroom conflict and management issues. It's very likely that a student that has no respect for themselves is not likely to care or show respect for others. Self-respect and self-esteem are different. Self-esteem comes from how you think and feel about yourself. Self-respect stems from how you value your conduct and your character. Although you can help students work on changing their thoughts and feelings, the path to self-esteem is far less difficult when you work on self-respect. Self-respect begins to form from productivity and what you do. Scaffolding tasks for your discouraged learners from less difficult to more difficult can help students achieve the I can awareness about their ability, thus building on and encouraging self-respect. Because others are working on this too, conflict can be inevitable. However, students will begin to realize it is unacceptable to engage in disruptive behavior that derails student learning. Understanding these concepts leads to learning in a self-disciplined and respectful room. This is a work in progress and will vary in success from student to student. Don't give up on it. Teaching responsibility means training students to develop self-control, healthy problem-solving skills, and to make good choices. When good choices are made, they will experience the positive consequences. When poor choices are made, they will experience and have to accept the negative consequences. Learning to be responsible will allow students to take accountability for their actions and accept the consequences of their choices. As an educator, modeling good behavior can have lasting effects. Every student is watching you as you contribute to one of the most emotionally taxing careers in the world. As stress or anxiety is easy to spot, so is an inappropriate response from an educator with lasting effects. Fatigue can make the most experienced educators weary. In order to establish these internal attributes, it's critical to craft and teach clearly defined parameters of acceptable behavior in your classroom. Don't get fooled into believing that a posted set of rules and a first-day in-writing review will clearly define what you expect in your classroom. It's recommended that you review these rules each day and model what you mean by specific classroom terminology. If you have a level 1 voice, give examples every day of what that sounds like. After several weeks, you might only need to reinforce the most overlooked rules. Treat these rules and procedures as you would your content. Teach them, do not announce them or point to a list on a wall. Classroom rules are just that, what you expect each day, and should be very detailed. How they enter the room and how class begins or ends. If you have a lab class, you may have 2 sets of classroom rules, and it's critical they know and abide by them. This is your management plan, if you will, how you manage transitions, instructional and procedural. Discipline plans accompany classroom rules and are detailed consequences. Progressive discipline is difficult to keep track of, but is fair and consistent. This simply means that you keep track of similar infractions, and each offense has more of a consequence to it. If a behavior continues to get the same consequence, it's more than likely going to appear as if it isn't important. If the penalty for speeding stayed the same in a year's time and the fine wasn't very significant, many more people would probably continue to speed. When the fine doubles and the threat of losing one's license presents itself, most will slow down. Academic rules are what you expect during instructional time and can be attached to classroom rules. These are nothing more than materials required, seeking help, and how you will address questions during formal instruction, and will vary from teacher to teacher. I may add here that you can always lift a procedure that you don't need after you develop a rapport and is in your comfort zone with your classes. However, it is difficult to implement one several weeks into school with mischievous classes. Let's recap some important concepts. Self-control, self-respect, and responsibility contribute to positive student behavior. Self-control is understanding cause and effect. Your actions impact your outcomes. We must remind students that all actions, positive or negative, have enforceable consequences. Creating attainable activities that promote student success helps build self-esteem and respect. Teaching parameters as opposed to announcing them is critical for student behavioral success. These guidelines help build up self-control, self-respect, and responsibility. Your early years of teaching will be an emotional roller coaster, but will be a rewarding learning experience. Please reach out and find a mentor in your school that you can go to for advice and encouragement. I hope this presentation has given you some insight to enhance your ability to manage your classroom and increase student success.